Well, let's get some analysis on this now. Joining me from Washington, D.C. is Ahmad Shah Mohibi. He's the head of Rise to Peace, a U.S. counterterrorism research and consulting hub. He's also a former state and defense advisor. Good to have you on the program. So we heard there from our correspondent about the action that the United States has already started to take, especially when it comes to counterterrorism. As somebody who has worked in this field, how then does this work and the collaboration then work between the United States and the Syrians?
Well, let me first say by illustrating this that this was more an insider attack than a Daesh attack. We have seen this in Afghanistan when we worked there with the Afghan security forces. So this is more a green attack on blue. A member of Syrian forces attack members of the U.S. forces, and that is a price of when the president of Syria, the current president, when he focused the whole focus of the war from what he called jihadists to democracy, that's the whole point. A lot of these soldiers, a lot of his fighters, a lot of his allies who once fought against the U.S., who fought against the Assad regime, and many others, they're not seeing, their purpose anymore. That's why, start fighting against the regime and Syrian allies. So this happened a lot in Afghanistan, and we see that starting in Syria right now. I say this guy, he worked for the security forces, for the Syrian security forces, and he did it deliberately. And, you're calling him Daesh. I call him, he was a soldier in the Syrian army. So this is really hard. We have seen a lot this in Afghanistan, a lot in Iraq. Basically, the soldiers didn't know who their enemy are. Like, basically, you're on a patrol and you have no clue. But the hardest one are the green and people like him. There with a gun, you have no clue. You think you're part of the Syrian army, but in reality, you're just waiting for their shot. So this is, I call it green, attack on blue.
Ahmad, this is, though, very concerning, obviously not just for the United States and other forces that are in Syria, but for the Syrian government itself, which has only been in power for just over a year since the fall of the Assad regime. How do they then work together to root out such elements within their ranks?
I mean, it's extremely hard. Like I said earlier, when you focus, the current president, he was fighting against the world. He was fighting against the Assad regime. I mean, Syria has been a complex issue. You call it freedom fighter, you call it ISIS, you call it Daesh, you call it Al-Qaeda. I mean, you call it the rebels, the Kurds, whatever. I mean, this has been, like, to be honest with you, a shit show. And this whole thing happened. Now it's 4 years. The guy is trying to make democracy. He's working. He comes to Washington, D.C., and he was the commander of all these terrorists and all these extremists. But now his focus is, look, I want to build Syria. Look, to somehow give credit to this person. But at the same time, there are other groups, other jihadists, other Salafis, other extremists, others who say, you know what, your route is wrong. We didn't want America. We didn't want the Western world. We didn't want these soldiers in our soil. Same thing in Afghanistan right now. Look, the Taliban back in power. Look, the moment one of the Taliban commanders or their leaders, they try to work with the U.S., you will see that next thing their soldiers will go and fight against their leaders. So this is extremely hard. This is the price of democracy. So if you want to bring democracy, if you want to bring some sort of development in your own country, this is a new regime. So you can have the regime change, you can have the new president, you can have all new alternatives policies. But the problem is all these people, they have fought for so many years, even over a decade. How are you going to change their ideology, their thinking that, you know what, we have to work towards a free Syria? So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. New chapter of Syria. A lot of Syrians are happy for democracy, what's happening. Bashar al-Assad is gone. They have a new president. He has an affiliate with Al-Qaeda and Daesh. But look, the guy is back on the stage across the world. He says, I want to bring peace. I want to bring, democracy. look, if that intention is good, if he is making progress, why not? Syrian people deserve it. But these types of attack, green on the blue, this is going to continue. And I call this an ambush for American soldiers and allies, because you never know who is your enemy. And that's the price of this type of war. Now, we have been in Afghanistan, we have seen the risk of this. Hundreds of American soldiers and coalition partners were killed by Afghan soldiers, by so many others who penetrated in the army. So it's going to stay challenging. Right now, we see a lot of talks, a lot of theories that they talk about how Americans are being pushed to war. They should never be there. That's what I see it, a green on blue.
Yeah, it's going to be a really difficult road ahead to try and bring that under control. Ahmad Shah Mohibi, good to get your analysis and expertise. Thank you all, as always.